Give him the right equipment, give him the right. Last year, he was in the eyes of
Andrea Kimi Antonelli may be a rookie in Formula One, but every step of his 2025 season has felt like a public exam watched by the entire world. His podium in Brazil should have been a defining breakthrough, yet as always, drama, controversy, and technical debates quickly overshadowed his achievement. On one side, Antonelli has shown maturity far beyond his age. From the turbulent early races to his increasingly assertive driving, he has revealed qualities rarely found in first-year drivers. But on the other side, Mercedes' inconsistency, questionable technical experiments, and his own occasional mistakes have made Antonelli's journey anything but smooth. And now, the F1 world asks again. Is he rising to the next level, or simply patching holes in a chaotic season? Amid all of this, one voice stands out: Max Verstappen. The four-time world champion understands pressure better than anyone, and his comments on the Interlagos podium carried a weight that went far beyond politeness. "Stay confident in yourself," Verstappen said. "In a rookie season, you'll experience emotional roller coasters, but in the end, it's part of the learning curve. You also need to make mistakes to become a better driver even in Formula One." Simple words, yet layered with meaning. A subtle critique, even, toward Mercedes' handling of their young driver. The team promised stability, but instead dragged their rookie through an engineering maze, most notably the experimental rear suspension geometry that was eventually scrapped after damaging driver confidence and feel. When a top team begins searching for answers through trial and error, the one who suffers most is the young driver. Antonelli has paid that price. We saw it in Australia, when he fell out in Q1 but surged back to P4. In Miami, when he took his first sprint pole. And in Spa, where tears revealed the crushing weight he carried after failing to escape Q1 twice.
Even his third place in Canada carried a strange irony. The circuit didn't suit Mercedes at all, yet he still reached the podium, a result that masked how flawed the car truly was. In reality, the new rear suspension geometry only made things worse, and Belgium became the season's lowest point. Then came Brazil. The restart incident with Antonelli, Piastri, and Leclerc reignited heated debate. The stewards blamed Piastri entirely, but technical analysis painted a far more nuanced picture. Data showed Antonelli double-tapped the throttle to correct wheel spin, while Piastri gained cleaner acceleration. Decisions were made in milliseconds, but their consequences spilled into the media room. Leclerc even offered a thinly veiled critique, saying Antonelli took the corner as if the McLaren wasn't already there. Not a harsh insult, but a revealing comment on awareness and race instincts. And that's why Verstappen's praise matters. "I think this year has been a massive learning curve for Kimi," Verstappen said. "But he is very fast. And for him to put together a weekend like this is really impressive." Behind those words lies the truth. Antonelli is quick, talented, and fearless, but still raw. And if Mercedes continues experimenting without restraint, they risk slowing the development of one of the greatest young prospects to enter F1 in a decade. The Brazil podium wasn't just a good result. It was proof that when given a stable car and a clear head, Antonelli becomes a genuine threat. At the same time, the 2025 season has shown that raw talent is not enough. He needs direction, technical consistency, and above all, belief in himself. Because in a world as brutally fast as Formula One, the most dangerous thing isn't a mistake on track. It's losing your confidence. And that is the one thing Antonelli must protect above all else if he wants to survive at the top. But the drama of this season is far from over. If Antonelli's 2025 journey could be described as a novel of tragedy turned triumph, then Brazil was merely a chapter that strengthened the overarching theme of his story. A young man forced to grow up too quickly on the most brutal stage in world sports. And on that stage, every move he makes is analyzed, every mistake magnified, every success questioned. After his podium in Brazil, the spotlight wasn't just on his speed. It was on how he reacted when the world pressed him from every direction. Cameras caught him standing in Parc Fermé, smiling but not a free, relaxed smile. There was tension behind his eyes. the look of someone who knows that even when he performs nearly perfectly, the world will still search for flaws. The story becomes even more dramatic when we look at how Mercedes has handled him. The legendary team that once dominated F1 for almost a decade now looks like a giant that has lost its way. And Antonelli, rather than being given space to grow, has become the victim of unstable technical experiments. A rear suspension update introduced and then abandoned, wildly inconsistent setups from one weekend to the next, internal pressure to prove that promoting him straight into F1 wasn't a mistake. All of this means Antonelli isn't just fighting rivals on track, he's fighting the shadow of expectations that follow him every time he closes his brand. Visor. When he cried in Spa, the world saw weakness. But it wasn't weakness. It was the honest moment of a young driver carrying a burden far heavier than what any rookie should bear. That moment transformed him from merely a promising talent into a human being forging real resilience. And now, after Brazil, the world is beginning to see that transformation take shape. On that chaotic restart, many blamed Piastri outright, but the truth was more complex. Behind the double throttle blip, behind the wheel spin that momentarily robbed him of momentum, there was invisible pressure. Antonelli knew every action he took would be scrutinized. He knew that every split-second decision would end up in press rooms, dissected by analysts, debated by commentators who have never felt the suffocating heat of a cockpit. Leclerc might have been right when he said Antonelli took the corner as if the McLaren wasn't there, but it wasn't simply a lack of awareness. It was the reality of how fast he has to make decisions, how thin the line is between acceptable aggression and a costly error, how tight the margin is between being labeled a gifted rookie and a driver still too raw. Amid all this turbulence, Verstappen's words became almost like the narrator of an epic drama. His advice wasn't just guidance, it was a reflection from someone who once walked the same path, endured seasons filled with pressure, and emerged a champion. You make mistakes, but in the end, it's all part of the learning curve. When Verstappen said that, the world seemed to pause. Because for Antonelli, those words were more than motivation. They were recognition and acknowledgement from one of the greatest drivers of the modern era that this journey is long and failure is not the end. It is proof that he is moving in the right direction. And perhaps the most dramatic truth of all is this: Antonelli never stops trying. Every insult, every criticism, every weekend when the car refuses to respond to him, he answers them all with one thing: speed. In a world where many young drivers crumble under pressure, Antonelli chooses to fight. The Brazil podium was not just a result. It was a declaration that this story is far from finished. That Antonelli is not a puppet shaped by Mercedes, not a talent waiting to fade into uncertainty. He is the main character in this sprawling drama, a protagonist who is finally beginning to find his voice. And now, as the season enters its final weeks, one question hangs in the air: will Antonelli turn the pain, the criticism, and the failures into fuel to become the driver he is meant to be? Or is this merely the calm before a much bigger storm? One thing is certain: if he follows Verstappen's advice, keep believing in yourself, then none of this turbulence is the end. It is the prologue. The prologue of a future champion being forged in fire.